Welcome, everyone, to the Game Vault Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Schuster. Joining me tonight are Mark Myers and special guest Jonathan. Tonight we'll be debating if Microsoft can save Activision and get rid of a certain CEO, and review our Retro Roulette game, Final Fantasy V, for the Sony Playstation. But before we get to all of that, what have you guys been playing? We'll start with guest Jonathan.
Hey, okay. So, the first game that I've been playing that I want to talk about is called Froggypot. I'm just going to read the description, and it's going to be very apparent to you what this game is. Okay. It's a short visual novel about a froggy chilling in a pot. The pot's warm now, but it'll reach a boil soon, so you have to convince Froggy to get out of the pot.
That's it? You just got to convince him to get out?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, okay, I guess I got to say one more sentence for you to get what this is. Why won't Froggy leave the pot? It's a very sad and anxious game.
I can imagine.
Good. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Then
you guys always find the weirdest stuff. I don't know, both of you. I don't know where you guys find this stuff.
This one I found because I follow a number of people on Backlogged that I have seen write stuff on video game forums that I think is interesting. And so they find these like small itch games and whatever. And then Backlogged shows you what everybody has marked that they're playing or added to their backlog and stuff like that. So it's an easy way for me to find things that people who like the things that I like are interested in.
Gotcha.
Then
crazy stuff. I'm gonna have to watch somebody play this after this.
Oh, yeah. It's like a 15-minute long visual novel or something like that. That's free on itch. Yeah, it's very short.
Okay.
Then also I've been playing Vampire Survivors after Mark mentioned it. I love a slow bullet hell. I want to find more of those. With regular bullet hell games and shmups and stuff, they just move way too fast for me to really process what's going on. But with this one, because it's slower, it's much easier for me to be like, oh, I see. I need to move like counterclockwise in order to avoid these people.
Yeah.
Avoid these attacks and stuff.
Yeah. Have you gotten to the second map?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I just opened that right before we started.
Nice.
I can't say that I have ever been very good at bullet hells, but it's interesting that it's a slow bullet hell. Like I've never seen one that's deliberately slow. Granted, it's about a slow moving thing, but that's still an interesting thing to build a game around.
Yeah, and it's now I don't know what the genre breaks down to, but it's roguelite.
Yeah, so it's like technically an action roguelite. However, that's not a super useful description of the game.
No,
I
not
think
at all.
The most useful description is I've heard is some people comparing it to an idle game. I think it's really a lot more like that. It feels more like that, and like the way that you engage with it is the same. That like you're not really thinking about it, but you just in the back of your head you're kind of thinking about like what's the best way to make these numbers go up, and it's really good for like when you are half like something to do with your hands while you're half paying attention to other stuff like listening to podcasts or something like that.
Yeah, it's and the way it ramps up, because this is going to be I'm playing this as well, so we'll both talk about it here. But the the only time you really have to think is obviously when the choices come up. But I used to go in and just go try to figure it out real quick, and the last couple of things I've gone, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go straight whatever the first two weapons I get, and then I upgrade them as they come. I'm not going to grab any other weapons. Let's see how that goes. Like, just doing playthroughs like that, just having fun with it, because you're usually done within, anywhere from, at least for me, because I've not gotten to the 30 minutes yet, between like 7 and 20 minutes. If you fuck up and do a dumb build in the beginning, you'll probably die quickly and be able to restart.
Yep. Then the last game that I've been playing is Monster Hunter Rise. Y'all know this.
Yes.
I think this game was probably my game of the year last year, but I felt kind of weird about that because I really liked it when I was playing it, when it came out in like the summer. But then I ended up falling off of it But then at the end of the year, I was still like, it was still probably like the game that I enjoyed the most when I was playing it. And I do have 120 hours in it. So like, I did obviously enjoy it, but just I don't want to go back to it. Then they released the PC version 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah. And I got it because a lot of the like streamers that I watched and stuff had said that they were going to be getting it and playing with viewers. So that meant that I would have like a reliable source of people to play with. I figured that'd be and that seemed like a lot of fun. So I did that. I got it and I did that. And I've been having so much fun with this. And this isn't, everybody I've heard talk about it has said the same thing, that it is, even though it's the same game that was on Switch, it's a much better game when you play it on PC. Because I think somebody was saying there's something about like the Switch drops inputs at a hardware level on occasion, and that's really bad for a fast-paced, demanding action game. Like it's just,
I'd say so,
miserable. It's not that frequent, but just the fact that it can happen, it feels terrible if it ever happens. Additionally, it plays like at 60% really easily. And consistently on PC, like it's not demanding at all because it was originally built for Switch. And so that means that like it's so much easier to like process everything that's happening and see what attacks have hit you and stuff like that. And also you don't have like the bad Switch multiplayer stuff. Like when this originally came out, there was no Switch OLED, which meant that you had to be playing over Wi-Fi. And playing multiplayer games over Wi-Fi is never great. Stuff like that. So
especially something like this. That's the last thing you need to do is be the guy who has a like 600 millisecond ping while you're playing Monster Hunter.
Yeah, lag's not as bad in this game as it is in like first-person shooters and stuff like that. However, it's still not good. And the fact that you can't use an Ethernet connection means that you're definitely like much more likely to have problems. So that game's great. I like it a lot. I beat the final monster earlier today, which is a jet dragon. Like it's a dragon, but its wings are jet engines. It's very cool.
It sounds cool.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right. Mark, how about you?
Well, I've been playing Vampire Survivors. And like I said, I think it's a very good game in the sense that you can, if you only have like a half hour to play something, you can just jump in, play it, and get your fill. It's also something great to have while watching a stream on the background. So glad I found it. And to answer a question from Tom earlier, I think me and Jonathan sort of find these games from the same place, either through a video game podcast or some message board or some, curated thing on something. And we just, try it. Essentially, it's like, hey, it's not that expensive, or it's free on itch, or it's on Game Pass. Yeah, it's just I have no qualms about playing something on, this isn't for me, and then putting it down. That's what happened with Biomutant last year. So, but besides that, the other thing I've been doing, which came off outside of our Retro Roulette game, which came off our conversation from last week, I had the thing that sparked that was that I had picked up Final Fantasy VIII Remastered on PC. And I have gone about for the last 9 hours completely breaking the game in the beautiful ways that game can be broken. I am on the second mission of the game, which for those of you that played it is Timber, where you meet Renoa and you begin the main story of the game. And I already have Squall up to 135 strength, and he's now hitting everything for like 2,000 plus points.
This is disc 1, correct?
Disc 1. The thing Final Fantasy VIII does is that the monsters scale with you, but they scale on your average party level. So I had just taken Squall out and sort of grinded him up, so he's like level 50 or 60, and everybody else is still single digits or low teens. So he's still one-shotting enemies because he's so much stronger than them. But, I'm going in. The best part about the remaster is I'm just seeing how much you can break this game. Because you can, when you're grinding for draws to get the magic and all for the junctions, you can just hit it on like God mode, and, not get hit and just sit there and just spam the draw button for like 5 minutes till you get 99 of everything. Then I turn it off and do the actual battle. But yeah, that game, while I probably would never play it through without trying to break it ever, it is a wonderful statement to a system in a game that seems complicated, but once you get just a little bit of knowledge of it, is completely broken. And since this came out in 1998, they didn't have a chance to patch out any of the brokenness. And it's just a beautiful relic to that time period. And watching a streamer I follow, Karkala, play through it for the first time and with the story, you just remember how batshit insane that story is. And, how one of the twists in it occurs and she just like puts her hands up and goes, sure, whatever. And continue, because that if there is a tagline to Final Fantasy VIII story, that's what it is.
I want to comment on the thing you said about the game, like being able to like really break the game.
Yeah.
So when I was a wee lad, I didn't like platformers because I was very bad at them because I was 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so instead, the games that I really liked were RPGs like Pokemon or other stuff like that, because you win the game not by having skill, but just by being smart. And so like a brains over brawn type thing.
Yeah.
And so like if you understand how the system works, or if you do research, like looking up a guide or something like that, then that is what gives you an advantage in those games to do well. And so it's like a weird tension then in RPG design, because you want there to be ways for people to figure out a really good strategy that seems ridiculous and powerful, but also you don't want it to be too easy to like find that, or for it to be too much better than everything else, because then it feels like it's a puzzle with one single solution and they just don't tell you that it's a puzzle. And you also don't get to like role play your character at all.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a wizard and the game's designed so that melee attacks are better and you should never use magic, then that's just like not a good experience.
It's just kind of what this game is. But
I think that's a Final Fantasy thing in general. Like you go back all the way to the beginning, if you use if you use a couple of red mages, or if a red mage is like your main character in the first one, it's a terrible experience because you're just getting killed over and over, when you could take 4 warriors, or I forget what they call them in the original. I think it's knights. You can just like spam attack through the whole game and just blow everything away. So I think it's a Final Fantasy thing more than anything. It's just picking the right build at the right time.
Yeah, essentially the Final Fantasy VIII thing, from watching this playthrough and seeing how the game naturally wants you to learn it, and my knowledge of playing it and now breaking it, it's just they have an idea for a good system, but when they put the pieces together is where the breaking occurs. Because the junction system, like making you junction magic to improve stats, that's a great system. I think it's in some, like, a good bit of RPGs, or maybe I'm just thinking after 8, people just took the idea. But the idea that you have to, that once the magic is stronger, the more magic you draw, that's, in my opinion, that's where the breaking comes in. Because you're more worried about every time you see an enemy, you just want to draw to 100 of that item, rather than actual fighting the enemy. And so if they could have split those up or figured out a way, it could have, played well. But, that's the great thing about Final Fantasies, good or bad, is that they always try a different system every time out, just about.
I feel like that makes them more vulnerable to this kind of problem where the game seems unbalanced, because they switch how the combat works every single game.
Yeah.
And so they don't have a chance to like fix design flaws.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. It's essentially where the good and bad is sometimes they hit on something great, like Remake, in terms of the combat. And sometimes they completely have it unbalanced, like 8. But yeah, it depends on like how you would like your game to be designed. You can have like a similar attack system, like I think Tails sort of does what you said, Jonathan, where it just iterates on the things it's done in the past, to improve them and add different things. rather than overhaul the combat entirely. Or you can do the new experience each game. But the one fun thing is that after years of just completely shitting on 8, I just realized I've come to love the beauty of the, I wouldn't say monster, but that's not the word I'm looking for. That this game actually is. It's kind of interesting to look back on it with it, a new eyes and probably a new way that I play games in my 30s than I did when I was a teenager. Yeah, that's about all I've been playing. Do that stuff. Obviously, I still play my NCAA 14 now that I've learned how to hack into it to make the college football playoff in there because I am a true elite hacker now. But there's a couple things coming out over the next couple weeks that I might pick up. I think Dying Light 2 and some other things. And I grabbed Persona 5 Strikers for free, but haven't been able to touch it yet.
Mark, how many hours do you have in NCAA 14? I am asking because I want to know if it's more or less than I have in Monster Hunter Rise.
It's going to be close. I'm going to pull up my thing. 92 hours.
92 hours?
Yeah.
And when did you start playing it?
I don't know. Was that probably November or December, I would say?
Okay. I have 60 hours in Monster Hunter Rise on PC.
And how many days ago did that come out?
16.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that happened with me with a game Tom's going to talk about, is that I bought it, played it, and played through the 16 to 20 hour story in about 3 days, like 3 to 4 days, because I just kept going. So I definitely know that, but that's kind of, if I didn't have to play games for this and do the other podcasts and stuff we do, I'd probably be on the same number percentage as Jonathan, like to days to hours. Because anytime I get some downtime and I don't feel like playing any of the new games I got, I just say, I'll play a game or two. And then, and that's like 2-3 hours. So
yeah, I get it. Totally.
But yeah, that's about it this week.
Right.
And I hope everybody tuned into the stream on Thursday and saw my beautiful professional layout for the Vampire Survivor stream.
It was very good.
It was very, very professional, let me tell you. Let's see. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast that I beat Halo Infinite.
Yeah. No. You mentioned it
on stream, right?
Stream.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I beat the Halo Infinite campaign. It was really good. There were definitely some parts that were incredibly annoying. There's one boss battle in particular that's incredibly annoying, and it was one of those ones that you have to walk away from it and come back to it because you just get really frustrated because it's one of those this is bullshit moments.
Yeah.
But other than that, I had a lot of fun. I've seen arguments that this is like it's not groundbreaking, but at the same time it's good because it's like the older games, which it kind of has the same feeling as like a Star Wars 7, say, where it hits all the same notes as like the first one. It kind of does that, but at the same time, it's its own game and it has a lot of interesting gameplay stuff that happens throughout it. Specifically, running across, there's things called Spartan killers that you run across. They're not hunters, which there are hunters in the game, but there's specific like mini bosses, which is something new in Halo. I've never experienced that before. You have mini bosses with actual health bars. The health bar thing was really weird to me because I've never seen a health bar in Halo before when you're playing a campaign. But it was the final boss and the end of the story is kind of like, wait, what just happened? You kind of have to like sit back and think about it and be like, wait, that person wasn't who I thought it was the whole time. So it definitely is a mind-bending campaign, that's for sure. And it kept me enthralled throughout the whole thing. I kept coming back to it. It was the only thing that was able to pull me away from Forza. But,
yeah, I've heard that most of the people that will love the Halo campaign are really, or you said enthralled with it, are people that are like old school Halo people that didn't really like vibe with 4 and 5.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, nobody vibed with 4 and 5.
Yeah,
some people did, but it's not. I would definitely say if you liked Halo 1 and 2, this game is going to be right up your alley. You're going to enjoy this game if you like the originals. even 3 to an extent, but it's definitely, I think they definitely were aiming towards that audience for sure.
I think a lot of the stuff that I've heard people say, as well as kind of my own experience, is that Halo Infinite feels like, wow, this is a pretty good showing for 343's first game after taking the series over from Bungie.
Yeah, exactly. What other 2 games? Those games didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it is definitely a high point in 343's attempts. It definitely is better than 4 and 5, 100%. Even playing multiplayer, it feels a lot more like the original 3 game, with the ability to run, and you have different things that you can do in the games. But it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it to anybody who has played the Halo franchise in the past and kind of got put off by 4 and 5. This is not those games. This is a totally different experience. And I found a new favorite weapon in Halo, and that's the Mangler. And I think everybody who's played multiplayer knows that the Mangler is just super OP and the best gun in the game.
Also in that opening campaign level.
Yes, in the opening campaign level, the Mangler is the gun to have. I mean, I pretty much had the Mangler the whole game. There's not really a part where I can think of where it wasn't like my main gun. There's times where you need an automatic weapon, but for the most part, like 90% of the time, I think I had the Mangler. And you can unlock a special version of the Mangler, which it has more of a spread. It's more of like a shotgun spread, but you can still shoot it at a distance. So it makes it even more OP than it already was. But yeah, so like I said, if you enjoy the original trilogy of Halo, this game is for you. I highly recommend it. And the other game I've been playing is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. I picked this one up during the podcast last week because Mark got to talking about it. I was like, man, I really want to play this game, but I don't want to pay full price for it. And I was bummed because it was on sale when I was looking at it, and then I went back to go buy it, and it was no longer on sale. But then I found it again on sale, and I immediately bought it because it seemed like a game I'd like. And I was talking about it on stream, and it gives you that Square feeling, like the new Square games all have a similar feeling. I don't know how to describe it. Just the way you move and where the camera's placed and how you deal damage. It kind of feels like Final Fantasy VII Remake to me. I don't know how else to describe it. I think that Avengers kind of has the same feeling if you've played that. But it all feels really good to play. It doesn't feel like you're not doing anything. I don't know how else to describe it. Like your weapons feel weighty. You feel like you're doing damage, and it gives you a lot of feedback. Like it tells you, oh, you're in a low damage area. Oh, you're in a high damage area. Yeah. Oh, you're about to die. Here's this huddle thing that we're gonna do. And if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, it pretty much nails it. And it's pretty funny. The game so far is very funny. I will definitely give it that. The writing is very good. The game itself is beautiful. And Mark, I know you've finished this game, and we both, I think, agree that this is probably one of the better Square offerings, and we hope that there's another one. Yeah,
it would have been pushing into my top 5 in my games of the year if I had played it in 2021. But the writing's the best part in terms of as with most Guardians content that I've seen or talked to other people who read the comics, this keeps up the tradition as Star-Lord being the worst character in the game. Yeah. And I don't know how far you are, but I really loved what they did. They do with Drax in this game. I'm through the first chapter, so we just got caught. Okay. And we're being brought in. By the way, I thought it was really funny that Peter Quill is Canadian. I don't know if it's in the story. I don't know if it's supposed to be in the story, but he's very clearly got a Canadian accent. Yeah, well, I think it's just a bad voice, like a not so great voice actor. I think he's from Missouri, or at least the Midwest. He sounds like he's from Canada. He sounds like Chris Jericho. I'm talking. No, you think Peter Quill is from Missouri? Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, the voice actor is very clearly Canadian, and they didn't tell him to lose the Canadian accent.
Yeah. Yeah, the Gamora. I actually like this Gamora better than Zoe Saldana's MCU version.
I feel like Gamora in the MCU is way too serious.
Yeah.
I feel like they definitely up the comedic value of the character, of all the characters in this.
Yeah,
it's funny because they upped the comedic values of some characters, and then they made some a little more serious. So they like Rocket.
Yeah. I mean, they're all have their comedy stuff that you see. If your only exposure was the MCU, some things will seem a little different, but most of it'll be the same. It's the best parts about this game is that it literally a couple times, and I use that word literally the right way, had me laugh out loud while playing the game. Not chuckle, not smile, like literally laugh as though I was watching a movie from just the timing of a joke and the way they build and what's it called, deliver on something, either some long setup and then the punchline is way later. There's a moment way at the end where I put down my controller and just started laughing because it was such a culmination moment and just a funny voice acting delivery, funny in a good way, delivery, and it's one of my favorite moments. I can't wait till you get there. It's way late in the game,
and this is not a game I'm going to stop playing. This is going to be one of those ones I'm going to finish.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave you with the thing I think I mentioned on the podcast and see if you agree when you meet her. The best description, which is from Alex Navarro that I heard of Mantis, is that she's Cher from Clueless if Cher could see all times and realities at the same time.
That's pretty funny.
So when you meet her, let me know how accurate that description is. And,
I will.
Yeah, Mantis might be my favorite character in the whole.
There's only one issue I've had with this game, and that is how much they use the controller speed.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely hate that. I never want any game to do it.
It uses it constantly, and the first time it happened, it kind of threw me off because not many games
use it like a walkie-talkie as though you're in Peter Quill's helmet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But the first time I did it, it was super loud, and I was like, okay, I was not prepared for that. And I remembered that you can adjust the volume of that in the PlayStation menu. Because you think you would be able to adjust that in the game menu, but no, you have to go to the PlayStation menu. And I had to turn it down to 30% because it was so loud. It's one of those games that I can't play when everybody's sleeping. Yeah. Because it's just so loud. And I have to wear headphones, one or the other, which I don't like doing. I'm not generally a person that likes to wear headphones when they're playing games. It's just not comfortable for me. But that's the only downside I've had so far is how much they use that and how often I have to hear it.
Yeah. So, and the one question I have before we move on, how long did you stay in the opening scene and listen to that cassette tape?
Oh, I stayed there for a good 10 minutes and was just listening. The music in the beginning is so good.
The opening scene, that is a legitimate full cassette of all those songs.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, that's why they have the lyrics on the thing. Now,
something I also did was left. I don't know if you've listened to when it's on the menu. PlayStation UI and you're hovered over the game. Yeah. That music that it plays is really good too. It's really good 80s heavy metal, and it's pretty cool. I like when they go all out and do stuff like that with these games. It's attention to detail that some people just don't care about, but I like it.
Yeah, and they nail it. You're only in chapter 1 and you're loving it. You're in.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get through the rest of it. But yeah, that's what we've been playing. And since the last episode, I want to say this happened almost immediately after the last episode, but Microsoft announced that they're going to be purchasing Activision-Blizzard. Acquiring. This is not a merger. This is an acquisition. And it's been... Go ahead, Mark.
They just couldn't get $300 million out of it, huh?
But yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about it. We're going to kind of debate whether Microsoft can save Activision Blizzard from themselves just because of a certain CEO that's there that we all dislike.
Yeah,
And
so
we won't give him the pleasure of talking about saying his name.
No, I am always glad to tell Bobby Kotick to go fuck himself whenever we get the chance. But I'll just break it down for those of you that may have been living under a rock since our last podcast. The Microsoft purchased Activision-Blizzard King for $68.7 billion. Don't know why they couldn't get 300 more million out of it.
It would have been real nice.
It would have been real nice.
Mm-hmm.
And just to make a comparison, when they bought Bethesda, they bought that for $7.5 billion. So obviously a significant purchase price, which will probably catch the eyes of antitrust people. So we probably won't have this deal settled as quickly as Bethesda was. But essentially, for those of you that don't know, by purchasing Activision Blizzard, they obviously get the King. They get those 3 publishers, but they, also get Infinity Ward and Raven, Sledgehammer, Toys for Bob, Treyarch, all those studios, mainly known for Call of Duty. But yeah, what I see in this, purchase is that essentially they're trying to do like they did with Bethesda and help out Game Pass. But I don't think they would have made this purchase without the shit that was been going on at Activision Blizzard lately. So that's what helps make this occur because, everybody's trying to jump ship off there and Bobby Kotick is looking for his golden parachute.
Yeah, I thought it was weird when all of this stuff in the news about Phil Spencer, not saying that it's this is not a political space to talk about this stuff. I'm like, that sounds a little funky, Phil. Well, little did we know that they were trying to buy them.
What he said was Microsoft is evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard. And at the time we were like, that's a really weird, non-specific statement to say. And now it's like, oh, yeah, I see what you meant.
It makes way more sense now that this has gone, well, at least the news has gone through. It hasn't been officially confirmed from a business standpoint.
It'll close sometime in the next fiscal year, probably after July, or sometime early summer, would be my guess. But they have until June 2023 to close it, according to whatever Microsoft's fiscal year is. But yeah, the other thing that came out is I believe they also changed Phil Spencer's title. He is now the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. It's not Xbox anymore.
Because I don't at this rate, I don't know how much longer they produce an Xbox.
Yeah, I mean they still have Xbox level staffers, Matt Booty, who I only mentioned because he's got the best name in the business. Is like a VP for Xbox Game Studios. They still having that name out there, but they did change the leadership thing, which makes sense if they're buying all these studios. They're going to get big enough that having the Microsoft name on it is going to be more important to investors than having the Xbox name.
Yeah, I agree. Now, for people who always say, oh, the Xbox has no games, this will add a lot of games to the Xbox. It'll also add a ton of stuff to Game Pass, which Mark mentioned before. I have this. After this, you're going to see Call of Duty Game Pass Day 1. You're going to see any Blizzard game that comes out, Diablo 4 if that ever happens, Overwatch 2, that kind of stuff, that'll all be Game Pass Day 1 with this stuff now.
Yeah, now they got the mobile side with King, and it's going to be interesting. I just from a strict news standpoint, I see the flip side of all of it, worried about monopoly and antitrust and all that, because obviously, you guys may have heard the first thing that started popping up in gaming circles was somebody saying, "Whoa, is Sony going to buy Square?"
Yeah, that's the last thing we want is to have everybody owned by somebody else. You need to have independent people in gaming, and that's I can see the issue with people that people might have with Microsoft acquiring first Bethesda and now Activision Blizzard, because Activision Blizzard, I don't think people understand just how big of a difference buying Bethesda and buying Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, well,
because everybody kind of compares the two, but Activision Blizzard is such a humongous company.
According to this, it was $61.2 billion bigger.
Right. And that may not seem like it may be hard to like fathom the difference there.
I mean, that means that this one is 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
I know, but it's just, to some people, it's just numbers and it doesn't mean anything. But
the main thing that's I think the only reason, to be honest, that this happened, or maybe happened this quickly, I don't know if they've been, because all these companies at all times, every so often, just be like, do like you do in sports with trades and stuff. Just call up, go, hey, you guys, looking to sell, or you want to, just have those discussions. No, not at this time. Okay, bye. Sort of. I'm sure that's happens. I'm sure there's some guy on the leadership team whose responsibility is to call just to see if they can acquire anybody. But I don't think, without the shit that went on at Activision, I don't think this happens. That's why it falls a little differently than any of the other things that have gotten stopped by antitrust in the past.
It was just like a daily event that something else came out about Activision being shitty. Yeah. It just continues to, like, stuff just keeps coming out and people keep losing their jobs and
or leaving.
It's really sad. And they kind of needed they needed to either bring in a new CEO, which didn't end up happening yet, or something like this needed to happen, like a takeover of some sort. Yeah. And the way that Xbox Gaming and Phil Spencer have been working these past few years with Game Pass and getting everything in order, and everything, pretty much everything they've done has been good. And you can't really point out something at Xbox and gone, yeah, that was really shitty. They shouldn't have done that.
I mean, so the reason that people have not had as negative reactions to all of the acquisitions that Microsoft has been doing is because all of what the developers who have been acquired have said is they're not really doing anything. They're letting us do whatever we want to do, whatever we were working on before, but they're just like giving us funding so we can do it. Like that, I think specifically Double Fine was made a lot of statements like that about Psychonauts 2, that they had a lot of levels that they had to cut from the game because they just didn't have the budget to finish them. And then Microsoft came in and they're like, oh, well, actually, we're just going to delay 6 months and add literally everything that we cut back into the game. The thing that's weird here is, well, so this is bad for so many reasons. One, we already mentioned it's bad that the industry consolidation is always bad because you have fewer people who are able to make things. Yeah. And it's also bad because Activision-Blizzard King owns such huge properties, and whether or not Microsoft will do this, they could make these incredibly popular games exclusive to one platform, which means that all the people who play Call of Duty or Overwatch or whatever on or Diablo on PlayStation have to buy a new console or a new PC in order to play the games that they already own, or like to continue playing the games that they like. But sorry.
No, I was just saying, I've heard this argument, and I find it incredibly hard to believe that Microsoft would leave that much money on the table.
Well, so we can get into that in a second, but where I was going with this is, like, it's bad for many reasons. But the main thing here is that Microsoft's reputation so far has been that they leave the studio alone when they acquire them. However, nobody wants them to leave Activision Blizzard King alone because, one, all of the like rampant sexual assault allegations and incredibly toxic culture. Two, Blizzard is infamous for severely underpaying all of their staff and having horrible working conditions. And then three, those companies own so many properties and they don't make games for them. Four, nobody has liked any game that Blizzard has released in like the past 5 years. And so,
I was gonna say Diablo 3, but that's like almost 10 years old at this point, I think.
Also, people didn't there were a lot of problems with Diablo 3 on launch. It's when the expansion came out that people are like, okay, this is good now, from what I remember.
Diablo 3 had that always online issue in the beginning, and you couldn't play it. I think
Sure.
I think if I remember correctly, all the servers were full and you couldn't play it. But you're right. Until I think the first expansion came out, that's usually when Blizzard likes to fix their stuff. Like I think they did the same thing with StarCraft 2. But yeah.
And then also, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just blabbering.
I was going to say, and the Warcraft Classic that came out recently, everybody
yes,
absolutely hated it, that it was a complete disaster.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. So, like, if they're being acquired, what people would generally want is for Microsoft to completely rebuild the corporation and basically just like break it apart into small teams to work on all these IPs that have been abandoned for years. However, if Microsoft does that, then it sets a precedent that we don't want for literally any other acquisition they may do in the future.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I don't think they're that dumb. Just seeing what Phil Spencer has done since the Xbox One debacle happened, I think he understands what needs to be done with certain things. And I don't know if he will be involved with replacing Bobby Kotick or finding a new CEO for Activision-Blizzard, but I feel like they know what they need to do, and they wouldn't have done this if they... I sound like an Xbox fanboy right now, but at the same time...
the only two games I play are Forza and Halo.
I own a PS5, but I don't own an Xbox Series X, so there's that too.
But you don't play games on the PS5.
I bought Guardians for the PS5. But I know I sound like an Xbox fanboy, but I can't. It's hard to argue with what they've done since Phil Spencer has come in. They've done a lot of good stuff, and Microsoft and Activision have been around for almost the same amount of time. Activision has been around since the Atari 2600, and they were like the main third party for the Atari 2600. So they're both relatively the same. They're both been around relatively the same amount of time. So it's interesting that now Microsoft owns Activision at this point.
Yeah, I think I have basically some of the same concerns that Jonathan has in terms of the difference between this acquisition and the other ones they've done. We can see it from consumers as, all this greats. It's just going to be, like they got Blizzard and then they just put stuff on there and everything was fine. But for the people at Activision and Blizzard and all, they were getting ready to start unionizing and, all this stuff because of all the terrible culture there. They're going to want Microsoft to come in and either acknowledge if they are going to do unions, acknowledge that, or come in and try and fix some of the shit. Some people may see Microsoft as a savior and not go through with the labor stuff. And I think the one thing that I think they will do, and I don't know how it'll look or you worry about other acquisitions in the future here, is I think they will start splitting off the teams and not make everybody work on Call of Duty and sort of let them revive some of the IP they own that they haven't done anything with in years and maybe decades in some cases. Yeah, this is going to be one where they may need to do a sort of EA style takeover in the not in the way that EA does it, but meaning like it'll become like Microsoft's Raven or Microsoft's Toys for Bob, and maybe they'll eventually find it so toxic they got to get rid of Activision Blizzard, the name and the and just do that, which could spell a lot of bad things for other companies at acquisition time, especially if they get away with it. And, you get word for the future, but it's such a unique situation from the other times companies have either been consolidated or went into bigger companies that I'm just interested to see where they're going. I think for anybody that enjoys games from the Activision Blizzard King thing, someone coming in and purchasing it was probably best case scenario. Because I would see the shitheads that are currently at the head of Activision Blizzard would have just folded the company and, rather than deal with unions and accountability, or the state of California would have shut them down. So maybe they get some reprieve for some of these studios. And the positive thing on a level that some acquisitions of these big companies do is not so much Kotick, but some of the other higher ups, if you buy them out or let them go with some kind of severance or something, they may go start a new studio, and there's another studio in the ecosystem that Microsoft can say why it's not an antitrust thing. So I think it's without thinking about it, this may be the biggest gaming story in a generation.
Oh yeah, I would go out on a limb and say that this is like the biggest news
maybe since Microsoft got into video games.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I can't think of anything like bigger than this. Maybe like the Wii. I don't know.
No, I'm talking about like strictly industry changing. Like the Wii was a great system, but it didn't change the industry. Everything's not motion controls now. Like strict motion controls like the Wii was. It didn't go that route.
Well, I would say it's probably the biggest thing since Activision acquired Blizzard or merged with Blizzard. That's probably the last big thing I could.
Still seems not. That doesn't seem. It's just weird for all the things we've talked about here. In reference to it, the good, the bad, the really ugly that the current people still working under their leadership at Activision-Blizzard until this goes through have to go through. It's when it gets to the mainstream media the way it has, because of the size of the purchase, it's one of those stories that and both of you can correct me if I'm wrong or something. It's something we haven't seen in our lifetime of actually following this stuff closely. Like I said, Microsoft getting into games in like 98, 99 or whenever they announced that they were going to do something Xbox, like gaming related. We were teenagers and probably not like into the business side of video games, to see it. But yeah, it's just, as I've thought about it as the news has come out, it's just like, you could look back on this and this could be one of the best things that ever happened to video games, or possibly in a lot of the ways Jonathan described, it could turn into one of the worst.
Yeah, there's definitely checks and balances here, and hopefully there are people that are able to keep track of those things, like make sure that, all this antitrust stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to prove that just because of Sony and Nintendo, first off. And the fact that there were more games, it's just the sheer number of games that were released in 2021. There's no way they can, it's going to be really hard to claim monopoly of it. But yeah, this is going to change everything. Essentially, there's a slim possibility this gets Game Pass on Sony system. Very slim, but it could happen, and that's an earth-shattering thing.
I'd say that's less likely than Microsoft keeping all the stuff on Xbox only. I don't think.
Yeah, that's the evil thing that could happen is they could hold Call of Duty hostage to Sony to saying, "Hey, we're going to make this exclusive unless if you let us put Game Pass on PS5."
I seriously doubt. I seriously doubt that would happen.
I mean, it's a very slim possibility, but it's open to that.
It is a possibility,
but it could also be Microsoft could handle this like they did Minecraft. They bought. Again, they bought another company from a shitty leader. Just kind of let that be and let it be everywhere it is, and just rake in the money from it. But it's there's so many big properties that. ABK has that I don't know. It's way too early. You have to see how it plays out, but because you could run through so many scenarios, of good, bad, that could occur here. Yeah, it would have been, the interesting thing is to see if Sony does anything to respond to it. They have time. Do they get on a Game Pass equivalent, on Sony that's better than PS Now? Do they go acquire a big studio to try to compete? But yeah, I think
I feel like Sony, if they're going to do anything, they need a Game Pass competitor, and they need to get backwards compatibility working. If they don't do that, then they have a problem. Then I feel like they'll have more of a problem than if they don't go out and get another developer. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think Sony does that. I feel like they already have the exclusive. They already have the stuff that people want. I don't think they need to do that. What they need is to get something to compete with Game Pass, because they're getting close to 50 million people on Game Pass, and Sony's finally just letting their games be on PC, let alone a Game Pass competitor. So
and Phil Spencer, as much as we love him, is saying the things he has to say at this point. He's not going to mention anything about Kotick or any of them because he can't legally say it until the acquisition takes place. So you have some of the people that don't understand these situations screaming and hollering on social media about it, and he's also going to say the things he said with Blizzard. We're going to honor current contracts, because he's not going to commit. And if Sony responds to it they're not going to directly say it's in response, but they're going to have to announce something, because Xbox is taking over all the headlines, all the stuff during the dead period, pre whatever the fuck E3 is now. So do they announce backwards compat? Do they say, hey, we're gonna improve PS Now, or what?
Yeah, I don't know.
They're gonna have to do something.
I don't think PS Now is the answer. I'm hoping it's a Game Pass competitor or something similar, or at least backwards compatibility.
Yeah, and it's got to be different. It's got to be the backwards compatibility from PlayStation from Sony. In my opinion, has to be hey, if you own the disc, you can play it. Not any of this.
I mean, I'm all right with that.
We'll license some games to be digital, that you can purchase or bring over. But if you have the disc, it can play. It might not have online capability or whatever, but if they can do the thing where, sports games work backwards compat, or, anything that has a license that expire, if they can figure something out with that can be a slight advantage. But yeah, it's January, not much to talk about. So obviously this takes, this would have, no matter when this was released, the Microsoft Activision story would have been talked about for a while. But now you have all this dead air time before even video games start coming out. And, the convention season comes around, that it's just going to be just rumors and people speculating and,
we're going to speculate right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that they will fix this situation? Or
no,
do you think that they'll let them figure it out on their own?
I don't think there's any good outcome from this.
Okay. Yeah. None at all.
The only ways that I can see this go are all like net very negative in some way.
Okay. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the only thing I know for sure that they'll do, because just for investor purposes, because it all comes back to stock market and investors and stuff, is they will find a way to get Kotick out for sure. He's too toxic to keep around, and I think Microsoft understands that and understands what it would do if everything went to hell because they kept this guy on. That I know for sure is going to happen. In what form or how long, I don't know. But yeah, there's so much just from a business standpoint, as Jonathan points out, that I'm always an optimistic person. If you've listened to They Called Us a Movie, I tend to be the one that leans towards not saying anything is shitty. I hope that there is a positive outcome, but I see all the pitfalls that Jonathan is talking about with it. I can talk and say, hey, maybe this will happen, maybe that, and just kind of hope and pray and believe that. But, if you have a probability scale, it's going to definitely strongly lean towards this is going to do something, whether it's something Microsoft does or gets involved in, or if it influences something another company does to go grab it, to consolidate the business more. It's just, the unfortunate thing is, I think they saw this, they saw what's the word? Oh, like a wounded bird, just sitting there, and was like, hey, we can make all this money if we pick them up. 68 billion is nothing to us. We're Microsoft. And they went and grabbed it. And I hope they have a plan, but yeah, I'm going to be the one that sort of sits a little bit in the middle here, I guess, between the two of you, as I tend to do. I always prepare for the worst, expect the best. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this. Or the opposite. Expect the worst, prepare for the best, whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's going to have some negative ramifications, but I'm hoping that it does not.
Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to be 100% positive on this, but I would like to think that Microsoft knew what they were doing. They they see the issues that are happening, and they have some sort of plan. There was an old joke back in Rooster Teeth that there's always somebody smarter working on a problem that you talk about. They like to think that there's always somebody out there smarter that's fixing it, and I'm hoping that's what's happening here. It may not happen, but I like to think that Xbox has been moving in such a good direction that it will continue doing that and hopefully help these people. I don't know if it's allowing them to unionize or bring
it's definitely
better...
not going to be that.
Well, I don't know. Nobody knows. 6 months from now, who knows what they're going to do? I don't know if it'll be that. I don't know if they'll bring in new people to try to make a better working experience in these places. But I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. But like I said, I'm probably the most positive of the three, and I'm glad we have differing opinions here because this is what I was hoping for, is a debate and not just everybody agreeing with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you guys think. Hit us up on Twitter at GameVaultPod. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And hopefully, fingers crossed, things work out for everybody. That can't always happen, but everybody but Bobby Kotick. That's all. So that's what we'll end with, I guess.
Yeah, he can go parachute away with his probably $260 million.
He can go straight to hell. That's anyway. So on a much lighter note and hopefully much happier note, we played Final Fantasy V for the PlayStation this week for Retro Roulette, and I think everybody really enjoyed this. Now, This is our first time playing this game, I think, for everybody. Jonathan, is this your first time playing it as well?
Correct. It's been on my to-do list for a long time, but this was the impetus for me to finally do it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think all of us have the same thing. We've all been waiting to play it for some reason, and we have found a reason. Now, Jonathan, what is your background with like 16-bit RPGs? Are you a fan of those? Or are you more a fan of newer RPGs? I know you love Japanese RPGs as well as us.
Yeah,
but this one has a very strict system about it with jobs.
So the first thing is that I actually played the GBA version, which is supposed to have a better translation but worse music than the PlayStation version. It's the one that was easier for me to play.
I mean, it's all basically the same.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was just say gameplay wise, it should be about the same.
Yeah. So I never played any RPGs on the SNES. I played a lot of RPGs on the PlayStation, but don't think I ever beat any of them. I did spend a lot of time playing them though. But the more relevant, so I guess no experience with 16-bit. Well, very, very minimal experience with 16-bit RPGs. But I tried playing Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI a few months ago, and I bounced off of both of those because I didn't think they were fun to play. But this one, I immediately liked it so much better because you have so with Final Fantasy IV and VI, you don't get to pick who your party members are or even who's in your party. And it also doesn't really tell you like what people are supposed to be good at. For example, in Final Fantasy IV, you've got the Bard. And what is the Bard good at? What is their job? I don't know. They seem to be my best melee attacker, but that does not sound right. And so like you would have these, I just like didn't know what to do with the party composition. And so the combat feels bad if you aren't able to make a strategy. But this one, you get to pick what class your party members are. Sorry, the cats are fighting over top of my microphone right now.
It's okay.
You get to pick what classes your party members are, and you can switch them easily. So you can experiment with different strategies and stuff like that. and also the abilities make it relatively clear what everybody's good at. So that is the thing that I like about turn-based RPGs is getting to customize the characters and specialize them for certain roles and work on your party composition like that. However, so that's why I asked to join this, because I was really liking it for that reason. However, as I played more of it, I am pretty sure I just don't like any Final Fantasy game. And I'll get into that more in a bit, but I just wanted to correct you. I did not end up enjoying the game that much, although I started really liking it.
Well, as long as you get some enjoyment out of it, I guess that's
what Retro Roulette is. It's a roulette. Sometimes it comes up red, sometimes it comes up black. We just don't know.
The reasons that I dislike it are enlightening, and so I have stuff to talk about with that, but I will let you two speak.
Yeah. Mark, where are you coming from with Final Fantasy V?
So as you all know, 6 is the my favorite and the oldest one that I have beaten. So I've always been staring at 5 going, I hear things about the job system. Some people prefer this to 6. I should just do maybe it's not the dumb thing to do with games and beat them backwards to their earliest incarnations. But yeah, I played through a little bit of this, probably a little less than both of you. But yeah, I'm really loving the job system for the reasons Jonathan mentioned, is that it's very obvious who does what they're good at. You get to pick and choose. And you have a little more freedom than you do in most Final Fantasy games in terms of what your party looks like. In terms of, it feels a little bit more like smashing together, classes and stuff for a tabletop D&D or something like that, where you sort of need to. You're not just going to go, okay, everybody's like Final Fantasy VIII. Okay, everybody's just doing melee because I've strengthened you guys up so much that you're just one-shotting everything if I hit the X button. The one thing that stood true that I heard going into this game is that the story is very,
cliche.
Yeah, cliche is probably a good word for it, but it's very much like, okay, I've seen these tropes before. I kind of know where I think it's going. Probably wrong, but there's going to be some dumb twist in it, or it could be like the other people that I have respect for that played through all these games go, no, that's pretty much, this game is what you think it is. That is probably a reason why it didn't come out in America to begin with, because it feels like the ones that did get released here outside of the first one, because, as the name portrays, it was, that director, producer's, last game. So that he was, or, they weren't going to let him do games anymore. So of course that came out everywhere. And then the next one that was really good that, this is just me speculating, that Square felt like, okay, Western audiences will get this, was 4 and then it was 6. So these ones in between are the weird ones that are maybe not fully baked, or in 5's case, maybe the story is just, a little too light, and it's more based on its action and, battle system and all that than an actual sweeping story. But I am going to beat it at some point, whether it takes me a year or 2 or whatever. I will get through it now that I've started it, to make it in about a year or 2. I'm staring down the barrel at, all right, I'm going to finally finish you 4, even though I've started you a few times. We're going to finish it. But yeah, I'm interested to hear Jonathan's revelations that he had, because it's always fun to, at least for me, playing through a game or a genre or series and going, I found out something about myself. Okay. So I'm interested. But Tom, I know you started more with obviously 7 was the first one. You're probably more exposed to the 32-bit and plus. What were you liking about this 16-bit one?
So I liked that they kind of give you freedom in the beginning to pick what you want each character to be. I'm also a weird person, and I liked Final Fantasy 13. So the job system in this...
I'm pretty sure all three of us on this call enjoyed or liked Final Fantasy 13.
Mark liked 13-2 better.
I like 13-2 better.
Oh, yeah. I thought that's the one that you didn't like.
No, he hates Lightning Returns.
I hate Lightning Returns.
Okay.
That piece of shit game. Because it was there.
I know there's a twist that you hate. I heard you do this rant before. I thought it was 13-2 that was the one that you complained about. Okay.
So anyway, I like the Crystarium in Final Fantasy 13, and the job system in this feels a lot like the Crystarium. So you can level up a certain class to a certain point, and then you can say, "Oh, I want to try a different class," and do that and level that up. I thought that was a really cool addition to this, and it does that thing where if you level up a class enough, you will get certain abilities and you won't lose them. So that is very helpful as well.
I was also going to compare this to Final Fantasy 13, but continue.
I don't know. Something about the beginning of the story, it really grabbed me. I was kind of like thinking, oh, more crystals. It's Final Fantasy. There's going to be crystals. Yeah. Of course there is. But besides that, I for some reason I really enjoyed the beginning part of the game, the first hour or two, just getting to know those few characters. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because obviously you're going to get more characters and you're going to be able to build your party out from there. And just it seems like, again, we were kind of joking about it on stream, like, oh, this person is whatever is going to be this is going to happen to them. Like, we were already guessing what was going to happen, and it was very obvious, but I don't think they wanted us to think it was very obvious. I don't know. It just, a lot of the stuff in the beginning was like, oh, they're trying to be coy about something, but it's not very subtle, I guess I should say.
Can I make a comment about that?
Yes.
And this also ties into what Mark was saying.
Sure.
I was listening to a thing about old RPGs a while ago, and they were saying that in around this era, like SNES, NES and SNES era, RPGs had the reputation of being the story games. That, like, these are the games that have like an important story, and they're for like serious people who want serious themes. But then when you get to like the PS1 or PS2 era and you have better graphics, those people realized, hey, wait, you tricked me into watching anime. And that's why they fell off in popularity in the West. And I think that explains what Mark was like. So assuming that's true, that explains what Mark was saying about 4 and 6 coming over here, because those have more of a focus on story.
Yeah. Like, no, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And then shoot, what you were saying, that this one is a more cliche story, or like it's easy to predict where it's going to go. And I think one thing with that is that this story seems very reminiscent of like the original Final Fantasy one. It's for Warriors of Light and whatever. Yeah. And also another thing to point out is that Dragon Quest is way, way, way bigger in Japan than it is here. And that series is famous for having like a very simple, predictable story with characters that you like. And that's what this one is. So that could be another reason that it is the way that it is. Just a difference in taste culturally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would make a lot of sense as to why it didn't come out here. Just because it's not as culturally relevant as 4 and 6. And I think, I've played 6, and I can see why that story would be interesting to Western audiences. And I can see why this one would not be also. But yeah, so far what I've played, I've loved. I like the fact that you gain abilities through your class or your job, and then you can switch jobs. I like that flexibility. Even though when you're in that job, that's all you can do. I like the fact that you can switch at any point you want. You'll be way weaker at that point, but you'll have another job. So, Jonathan, why did you grow to dislike this?
Yeah, so first thing, I want to start this by asking a question. Guess which 4 Final Fantasy games I have beaten. I think, yes, it's 4.
It's 4?
I've beaten 4 Final Fantasy games.
I would say
which ones?
13, 15, 10, and 7.
I have not beaten 10 or 7.
I got two out of the 4.
Yep.
You seem like a 12 guy to me.
Nope.
Nope. Really? Okay.
I tried to play that for the first time like a month ago and bounced off of it. I don't think I like the Evil East stuff very much.
Yeah, that would explain why. Yeah, you have to.
I was going to say, it's
really
also very MMO light Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, so did you beat, I think what's left is like 8 and 9, or?
Nope.
Nope, okay.
I've never really played 8, and I didn't even finish the first disc of 9.
I'm going to say 13 and 13-2 and Lightning Returns.
No, I beat 13. I did not play any of the sequels, though. I just haven't tried them, but 13.2 is on Game Pass, and so I have it downloaded, and I'm planning to try that soon.
Yes.
Okay, the answer is 11 and 14.
They don't count. We don't count those here.
14 does count.
No, I beat the story in both of those games. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the thing that 3 of those 4 games are an evolution of this job system. So you already mentioned 13, already compared 5 to 13. And the comment I was going to make there is that 13 feels like an evolution of this in that instead of managing each party member, you manage the party as a whole. And it's the same concept of each party member has many different roles that they can fill, and you swap who is filling which role at any given moment to adapt to the encounter, which is like the thing you do in Final Fantasy V, but also you just do it within a battle in Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. 11 and 14 have the job and sub-job system that works in the same way, where you level a job and then you can equip it as a sub-job to gain that first job skills while you are using a second job. And in those 2 games, since they're MMOs and you have you are playing a single character that has a very defined role, that can be kind of weird because you are kind of locked into what sub-jobs you can actually use, because there were some really weird dependencies, like if you Paladin is a tank in 14, but you have to have White Mage as your sub-job because that heal is one, they expect you to have a self-heal, and that's the only way to have a self-heal. 2, that heal is actually the way that you maintain threat, because heal spells generate more threat than regular attacks, because you don't do that much damage. But because you are a tank and you generate more threat than everybody else anyways, it is your biggest source of threat. And so it's incredibly important that you have that ability, and the only way you get it is by having a specific sub-job. So it's weird, but that is, again, exactly the way that Final Fantasy V wants you to think about this stuff, that you are combining your job and sub-job to make a full, fleshed out, more complex character.
Yeah, you sort of, I know you said you bounced off of it, but the Zodiac Edition 12 sort of does the job and sub-job thing as well, but not as well as the 3 games you mentioned. 11's the only one I haven't touched ever, and I feel like it's a very niche thing. If you played 11, you played 11. It's not something that you were like, I dabbled in it. But I really enjoyed my time with 14, except I don't think between all the stuff I do that I could justify the monthly thing for it. But if I could, and I would play that game a lot. I really did enjoy, the month I played it, because I couldn't get the free trial thing, because I had apparently signed up for a free trial 8 years ago,
right,
or whenever it first came out, and they wouldn't let me do it again when it was a completely different game. But yeah, I can see the comparisons to the games here, and didn't really actually think about them. Brought it up in terms of especially 13. Maybe because they have different names for the stuff,
right.
Ravager and Commando and stuff, that didn't really click in my head that they were job systems. But yeah, this is the thing with Final Fantasy. It seems like a lot of the, outside until Remake came out, a lot of the battle systems that seem to get popularity amongst RPG and JRPG fans are the ones that have this kind of system to it. I don't know why they haven't tried to do that, more often.
I am going to speak to that a little bit more in a second.
Good.
But first, I want to ask another question.
Yeah.
What do all 4 of these games have in common?
Chocobo.
Oh.
I mean, yes.
That is technically true. That is not the answer I was looking for.
First thing, I want to say that not knowing much about 11, I would say the stories are very anime.
Nope. I mean, that might be true, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So the answer is none of them have ATB. Well, I guess 13 kind of does, but not really.
Does, but
it's not the same thing. Yeah. None of them have ATB. ATB sucks. I hate it. I was playing this on... You heard me say earlier, I had 2 cats fighting over my microphone, because that's the thing that happens when you have multiple cats that are very energetic. So I was playing this game, and I would look away because I would hear a cat like smash into the wall or something. And then when I look back, the enemy has done 2 attacks because I wasn't hitting a button at that moment.
Yeah.
Which sucks. And then also it means that inside of a fight, you can't really think tactically. And so that means that the fights in this are a lot easier than I would expect from a game that allows this kind of customization and stuff, which is to say that it feels like a baby game for babies. At the same time, like as far as the difficulty of the combat and whatever, and variety of attacks that enemies do and stuff, but also you have all this customization, and so it feels weird and like overkill to be able to make this super complex party, but then you only do 1 attack with any given person each round.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. It makes sense. It was funny when we were on stream. Somebody said, "Oh, just hold X." I'm like, "What?" I did.
Yeah.
Like, why? And they're like, "Oh, it just automatically inputs the next thing." Which the first hour of that game is hold X to win.
Yeah.
So that's the first 7 hours of that game.
Yeah, I had found that out from watching somebody, but also realized that was the trick to doing things in 8 is when you're just drawing magic and sitting there, is to just set it on, remember the input, and then just hold X until you've drawn all the magic you can.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it, like you said, it does make it seem like a baby game for babies, but I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it because I don't have a problem with games like that. I don't have a problem with easy games, I guess I should say. Baby game for babies.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that like this game is too easy or that it's bad for that reason. Just that the combat is not as complex. Well, okay. I didn't end up liking Final Fantasy V, but I really, really like other games that have come along more recently that are heavily inspired by Final Fantasy V.
Yeah.
And the main difference between those two is that the more recent games that I'm thinking of, specifically Mary Skelter and Demon Gaze, which are both Vita RPGs and have they're good. Yeah, I have played a part of Bravely Default.
I had heard things about that system that has made me resistant to buy that game. So I'm glad to hear someone else that I trust their opinions on also saying that system sucks.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to finish my sentence.
Yeah, finish your thought there.
So the thing that these more recent games have the thing that's different about them is that what you do they are turn-based, and what you do in a turn is more complex than in Final Fantasy V. So like while you definitely have times where you can just do the equivalent of like just hold it down X to like do the same actions each turn, you don't just have everybody doing attack or just casting like fire or whatever. You have like your healer has an ability that costs no MP that gives everybody a shield. So like they are doing that every turn. And then your fighter is always attacking. And then your mage has like a low damage AoE that they can cast every turn. Stuff like that. So that you still have a lot more planning that you're doing. And yeah, it's just a lot more to think about than Final Fantasy V, which is set it and forget it, basically.
Yeah. I can certainly understand why that would turn somebody off from this if it gets to be basically a slog and it's just too easy. I can definitely understand.
Yeah, the first thing you learn is that is just as you get play more games and get a little older is just understand that some games are going to have things that just are not going to click with people and has nothing to do. It's not a personal attack on your like or dislike of that game, unless you're like Lightning Returns. But I'm
going to play and enjoy that game just to spite Mark.
You probably would like it.
You probably would. But yeah, no, as Jonathan said, I've shared my thoughts on why I hate that game. But yeah, it's just like Jonathan enjoys, the no ATB. I don't know what side of the fence I fall on, whether I like that or not. But I'm not gonna, get mad that if I like ATB because Jonathan doesn't. It's one of those things where I think that's the good side of what I said in the beginning of the good and bad side of Final Fantasy switching up combat a lot, is that there's enough of those games out there, including the MMOs, that somebody's going to find something they like. There's still the tactics games. There's was it Mystic Quest? No, that's the TV show. There's a Mystic something. Final Fantasy, that's a totally different game, and you just find what you like and just keep playing it. Yeah. That was the thought process I had with this. Is I think I'm going to enjoy this in terms of I like the job system and the battle stuff, because I did like the Zodiac edition of Final Fantasy 12. And it'll just be one of those things that if I finish it and it's something I'm like, it wasn't as good as I thought by the end, I'll be able to hang it on my thing. That next up is 4, which has a story focused game that maybe I will love. But yeah, I'm glad we got this week. This discussion is what I would love to have with these types of Final Fantasy games and just long series games in general.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I really enjoyed this one. Hopefully, eventually, we'll get to all of them.
Yeah.
So let's get our scores in here. Jonathan, what score do you give Final Fantasy V?
I'm gonna give Final Fantasy V 5 out of 5 Final Fantasies. I wanted to make that joke, but 2, just that even though I don't like this game now, that's only because there have been newer games that are like straight up improvements on this game, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so if I had played this close to this time, or like when it was released on GBA even, I absolutely would have loved it and thought it was amazing.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, so probably at this point, I'm leaning more towards like 3.5 out of 5, just because I wish the story was a little bit better, and I'm very strict about my 5 out of 5. So I got to leave some room for the games that I do think currently give me everything I want in a Final Fantasy game. But this could easily, I would say, the highest if anything improves, or if the job system is so great, it could end up being a 4 by the time I'm finishing it. But yeah, it's fine. It doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time, because these games tend to go long, and that's always the first worry when you jump into one of these. And so far, I am enjoying what I'm playing, and don't feel it, and it doesn't feel like a slog. So as of right now, 3.5 out of 5 sounds right.
Wait, I want to change my score. I want to give it 4 Warriors. I want to give it 4 Warriors of Light out of 5 Final Fantasies.
I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 also. Like we said before, it does everything that a Final Fantasy is supposed to do. I really enjoyed the story so far, even though it's kind of gimmicky and you kind of know what's coming. I was all right with that.
Do you know the final boss's name? Did you get that far?
I did not get that far.
Okay.
Is it something that is?
It's very silly. Do you want me to tell you?
You can tell me.
X-Death. EXDEATH.
Nice.
The evil warlock X-Death.
That sounds about right for this game. That's okay. I'm all right with that. But yeah, as we continue through these Final Fantasies, I think 5 I like better than 8 so far, because I'm gonna have to do a whole ranking once we get through them all. But yeah, I'd say 4 out of 5 for me. And everybody who's playing along at home, let us know what you think on Twitter. Hit us up there. Let us know what you think of Final Fantasy V. All right. it's time to spin the wheel. All right, so Imperfect Pour is getting something a little early. He's going to get Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation 1.
Nice, can't wait to go back.
Interesting.
So we've played, I feel like Castlevania and Final Fantasy are probably the two most popular ones we've done so far, like the two most popular series we've done. Because we've done Castlevania 2,
4,
and 4, and 1. We did Castlevania 1 also, right? So now we'll do...
Was that the one where you killed the guy and then fell off the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Then
We also did Rondo of Blood.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, this is the sequel to Rondo of Blood, a game that no one ever played in the U.S.
Yeah, there's 3 games that are attached, and they all have musical names. Was it Rondo of Blood, this, and then something Aria or something?
Aria of Sorrow.
Yeah, Aria of Sorrow. Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm going to have to read a manual before I play it because I've seen people do stuff in this game that I've never been able to figure out how to do. So I'm gonna have to read up and see exactly how everything works. But I'm excited.
Just watch a speed run.
They don't explain how they do stuff.
Well, watch it on AD Games Done Quick. They explain it there.
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, I don't think the manual is going to tell you how to clip through the stairs.
I'm not worried about that.
How to clip through the elevator to get through a locked door.
Right. I have never really played this game, but I have it on my Vita, and I have been meaning to get around to it. So I'm excited for this.
Nice. I'm excited too. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for us this week. Mark, do you want to let everybody know about our family of podcasts?
Yeah, so we have our movie podcast, They Call This a Movie. Airs every Thursday. You can find it on Spreaker. We're on Instagram and Twitter at TCTAMPod. That's TCTAM Pod. We rebranded it. We're going to have a new website coming soon that'll encapsulate all of the They Call This a Movie stuff we've done and things we'll do in the future. And we've had some really interesting movies coming up. We're getting into our Gerardaberry, or basically it's Gerard Butler in February, which is an inside joke. We are not watching 4 Gerard Butler movies. We're watching only one. But for some reason, one of the 3 of us named it that. And that is what we're going with from here on out. So be on the lookout for that. And then we have our Valentine's Day episode coming up, which this year is 50 Shades Darker, because we're torturing ourselves by alternating Twilight and 50 Shades movies each year, because that's what Valentine's Day is all about. Those 2 movies. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. February is a fun month, and then we'll be on to getting into some of the spring stuff, and hopefully Dan doesn't choose a Sword and Sandals movie. And then we stream 3 days a week over at twitch.tv/GameVaultPod. Mondays is Tom's Retro stream, where we'll be playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night this evening. And he's finishing up Resident Evil 2, and then we'll get back into Chrono Trigger. After that, probably one more stream of Resident Evil 2. Or should be one more stream. We'll see how you do. And then Wednesdays is our multiplayer shooter. We're currently playing through Halo Infinite, but obviously if a new one comes out that would be interested to try out or do once, we do. That's just the one night where the 3 of us are all on playing together. And then Thursday is my co-op stream. I think me and Tom either next week or the week after. We'll be getting into our co-op game. I've just been filling it with Zelda randomizers and Vampire Survivors, and just basically having fun with the layouts on OBS more than anything. So be on the lookout for all that, and probably going to discuss it with the group, but I'll mention it here if you guys want to let us know on Twitter. I'm thinking of setting a day, maybe a weekend day of maybe doing a randomizer once a week. So if that's something people want to see and check out, I'm always down for it. But yeah, just let us know.
Yeah, awesome. So, like we said, a lot of stuff happening in the next couple of weeks, months. So make sure you're following on Twitter and in our Discord if you want access to that. You just DM us on Twitter and we'll get you access to the Discord. And before we get out of here, I want to mention that we're an affiliate of Stone Age Gamer. If you have a need for any retro console accessories, whether they be controllers or cables or power supplies, head on over there via the link in the description of this podcast. Every time you use that link to purchase something, it gives us a little kickback and helps us make this podcast and our streams better for you guys. So I want to thank Jonathan for joining us, filling in for Jen because she's now left the land of the living. And hope you all are doing well out there. Hope you have a good week. And for Jonathan and Mark, I'm Tom, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.